Danielle? Sure. Okay. Are we ready? Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Donald T. Lopez, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, and I want to welcome everybody to our Board of Trustees regular meeting. It's Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, and the time is 7 p.m. Calling the meeting to order, I want to ask the Boy Scouts to come and present the colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please come forward. This way, yes. Please post the colors.
Color guard for March.
So are you going to lead us?
Color guard, please post the colors. Can everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please come to the front, because I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Go on to the front. For those of you who may not have come to a Board of Trustees meeting in the past, there is a tradition. We ask the Boy Scouts to tell us everybody their name, tell us a little bit about the Boy Scout experience, and tell us a little bit about where you go to school and how old you are. So I'm going to let you start. Are you an Eagle Scout or
I am second class.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. You go ahead, sir.
I'm with Bulow. I think Boy Scouts is like, it's basically helping out the community and doing things that are good and are productive. I'm a tenderfoot. I'm trying to get to the new class.
Good.
And I'm going to Jefferson Middle School as my school.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Go ahead. Go ahead. I want to thank the Boy Scouts for doing this for us beautifully. At this time, I'm going to go to item 3, which is the roll call. Trustee Mayor Pro Tem Sandra Pacheco.
Present.
Trustee Gil Benavides.
Present.
Trustee Alan Lewis.
Present.
Trustee George Radnovich.
Present.
Thank you. Item 4 now is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion. I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
At this time, we are now at item 5, which is public comment period. Participants may address the Board of Trustees to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Submitted written comments that were sent to the clerk prior to the meeting will now be read. Danielle, please read the submitted comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and trustees. I received 2 comments tonight. The first one is from Robert Kears, dated April 11th, 2022, referencing the open space. Dear elected officials, it has come to my attention that the open space on the north side of Paseo del Norte is about to be changed. 2 things that caught my attention. 1, the space is to be converted from semi-wilderness to farming. I do not have a big problem with that concept. I consider the alfalfa I raise at my place to be open space. But the use should be decided by the elected officials. 2, I have a huge problem with leaving the land fallow this year. When I moved into my place in 1980, it had been vacant for a year because of the previous owner's death. Within the next 3 years, all of my large cottonwood trees along the Westgate Lane died. These trees all had trucks larger than 2 feet, a couple larger than 3 feet. With our water table declining, I am very concerned we would lose the vegetation, including the trees. We are spending many thousands of dollars planting trees along 4th, only to make a decision to kill hundreds of others. It doesn't compute. Please take control of this situation. Sincerely, Bob Kears. The second comment I received is addressed to Mayor Lopez and the Board of Trustees from Ms. Camille Varos, village resident, 427 El Paraíso Road Northwest. Mayor Lopez and Board of Trustees, thank you for your time and dedication and for listening to my comments. I'm traveling to visit my first son and 2 grandsons. My first comment, I want to thank Ann Simon, our village administrator, and our moderator for hosting the economic development meeting that took place at Village Hall on March 30th, 2022. There were 3 breakout sessions. I was in village activities. In my session, we discussed activities to bring the village together. 1, harvest parade. 2, activities to get our schools involved. Fundraisers brainstormed by students. 3, using the Ag Center for more activities. 4, food trucks for students to get local food after school. I felt excited. We all participated in sharing. I met participants from our local businesses and a few resident people, Loretta Chavez Smith and Mr. Miller. The general consensus, keep the venue of our village so not to change our ambiance and get more residents involved. My second comment, Mayor and Trustees, if the voices of residents are involved and listened to, and if we all work together, we can move our village forward. We can keep our village safe, peaceful, and unique. We have cultural traditions, we have youth, millennials, and senior and seasoned individuals. We have it all. We can do it all. We need to be mindful how we do business to live harmoniously. Thank you, Ms. Camille Varos.
Let me follow. Participants wishing to speak that registered with the clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting will now be provided an opportunity to speak within the allotted 3-minute time limit. There will be no discussion about this. This is strictly public comment. Danielle, please announce the speakers.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Joe Craig, if you would approach the podium, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Trustees.
Mr. Craig, if you would provide your full name and your street address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito Northwest. I'm president of our Calle del Pajarito Neighborhood Association, president of the Friends of Los Ranchos. I'm pleased to see this large turnout in our village of not only residents, but people from all over. We sent out an SOS earlier this last couple of weeks. We're very concerned about our fabulous Del Norte open space. Our neighborhood led the drive. The Friends of Los Ranchos helped get the funding from the state legislature and from Bernalillo County. There seems to be a lot of misinformation that is going on regarding the space. I've been on the phone probably all week. I'm still confused on what we're doing. I'm not quite sure who's in charge. And so I'm asking the trustees to, and the mayor to help provide guidance. Mayor, I called you. I've talked to Administrator Simon, talked to Josh O'Halloran this afternoon, and he was very helpful. This is fabulous open space, probably a $10 million piece of property. We're going to fallow it for the farming. Farming is fine, it's a management tool, but we have to be cognizant of the water table and of the wildlife in that open space project. Really like to have some discussion as to what happens. I'm not concerned about the farming. As I said, it's a good management tool, but the trees, I'm afraid we're going to lose them, and some of them are 100 years old. This is really important. The cranes, geese, egrets, I mean, hundreds of them, and I didn't get a good answer as to what happens to them. So I'd like to have a further conversation with you as we could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Debbie Brown, would you please approach the podium, please? Ms. Brown, if you would, state your full name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor and Board of Trustees. My name is Debbie Brown. I live on 1037A Ortega Road Northwest. I live on the north side of Ortega Road, which is the unincorporated part of Bernalillo County. The south side is in the village of Los Ranchos. I have lived at this address for 22 years, have walked in that area for those 22 years. I am
create a dust bowl next to our homes, releasing CO2 into the air. Many of the residents that live in this immediate area use this open space daily, and its destruction would be devastating and a great loss for us that would impact our quality of life. The transfer of the lease of these lands happened without the public being informed, and the application to the MRGCD to enter a fallowing program was planned to be submitted without our involvement when we're the ones whose lives are impacted the most by what occurs on these lands. The residents surrounding the open space between Paseo del Norte and Ortega Road would just like to be part of the discussion about the future of these lands, which are so vital to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Jeannie Schulte.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you would, please state your full name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm Vera Jenny Schulte Riedel. I grew up in the North Valley. I live now 4404 Cactus Hills Place, Northwest. My reason for coming here today is to let you know the update of the Schulte House restoration project that we have going. This is an amazing little house, family house. Actually, it was my grandparents' 100-year-old house. So we're holding this amazing little event May 22nd. We have vintage car shows. We have a demonstration from the fire department. A band is scheduled, food trucks, silent auction from a gift from the Acoma City clay artist. Advertisements will be going into Rio Rancho Observer and into the Journal. There's going to be photo shoots. It's going to be a really wonderful event for the city for the village of Los Ranchos. So in this packet that you have the event and you have the registration fee, and behind it is something that is of deep concern to me. It is an MOU from the village, something that is desperately needs to be revised, as we are all volunteers working on this. Every bit of money that we raise, we've got over 50 vendors coming. So every bit of money we get, only $50 a booth, $60 a booth, goes directly to the restoration of this little house. So if you would take a time to read this MOU and reach out to me, my card is there, so that we can discuss to make this a better partnership. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And J.D. Michelson, if you would, please. If you would please state your full name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Name is J.T. Michelson. I live at 5001 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest in the village. I'm here to thank the mayor and the trustees for taking 4 hours out of their work week to have a strategic plan to come up with what should be accomplished in the next couple of years. The village has a variety of different projects, resources, but taking the time for all of you to sit down and talk about what are the priorities I thought was extremely important. As these issues come up, you can refer back to them and what you all have decided as your priorities, because we'll have a lot of important things coming up in the next 2 years. Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, I have Jacobo Sanchez. If you would please approach the podium. State your full name and your address. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Village of Los Ranchos, Mayor Lopez, Board of Trustees. My name is Jacobo Sanchez. I live at 9214 Edith Boulevard Northeast, and I'm here to speak on the concerns of the Paseo del Norte property. Recently, I was awarded the RFP to contract farm the open space for the next 5 years. In these next 5 years, you will see the implementation of the farm management plan that was selected by the Village of Los Ranchos to support its longer-term vision for agriculture, conservation, and recreation in the village. The vision for this plan comes from 37 years I've lived in the North Valley with grandparents that were born and raised in Old Town who taught me how to live in balance with the land, leaving more than you take. All of those combined years and experience of raising families on farming and hard work in the North Valley are in the plan I submitted, which is freely available for all of you to see. Through success in business, construction, and real estate, I consider myself very fortunate to afford to implement farm management practices that support soil, wildlife, pollinators, and the community. In order to support those things, farm fields and irrigation infrastructure needs to be efficient and maintained. During our last walkthrough with David Montoya, Ann, Josh, and Keen, David pointed out that infrastructure improvements did need to be made. Given this year's irrigation season outlook and maintenance at Ovado, an attempt to farm this large property in its current state of repair would be wasteful at best. This is why I recommended fallowing the fields to the village. Knowing the property's 15+ years of management history, I know that letting the land rest would not be a bad idea, and it's greatly needed. Thanks to MRGCD's fallowing program, farmers and irrigators are given a much-needed financial lifeline to reinvest in their land during times of limited water supplies and unfavorable growing conditions, which the village and I have chosen to do this year. I only have 3 minutes here to introduce myself tonight. Still, I know there will be plenty of opportunities to answer any questions, walk the property to get on the same page about where it's currently at and what still needs to be improved. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we all want? To work together and make it the best land that it can be. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Andrew, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but if you would please approach the podium, state your full name and address. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Andrew Kelleher at 801 El Pueblo Road. And I did also come to talk about, keeping the trees alive and everything. And I also wanted to thank you guys, the revitalization project along 4th Street. I think it looks great. I drive down it every day. I think it's really fantastic. And I just wanted to, thank you all for coming. It's great to see the whole village out here. I don't think I've been to one of these meetings since we came in the 1st grade to light a Christmas tree. So it's a real pleasure. But yes, I do want to just say that those trees, I walk along those trees at the Paseo del Norte property every day, walk my dog. So it'd be a real detriment if we did lose any of those. So thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Nora Kelly. If you would, please state your full name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Nora Kelly, 801 El Pueblo Road Northwest.
And I just want to, I agree with everyone here who's concerned about our trees and about the property itself. I'm not sure what fallowing means. I think our farmer probably could let us know what exactly that's going to look like, but I want to say we're all birders, people who ride horses there. It's a gorgeous piece of property, and we need to keep it healthy. And I don't know what the water requirements are going to be to do that. I would add, I've just seen that there's a program, which maybe everyone's already read about, but America the Beautiful, which we can apply for grants that would help possibly with the water. You know, water projects are part of it. So I just wanted to speak in support of keeping that beautiful property the way it is to the extent we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have a gentleman by the name of Jason Kasuga. If you would please approach the podium. State your full name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Mayor, directors, my name is Jason Kasuga, and I am the CEO and Chief Engineer for the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, and we are located at 1931 2nd Street Southwest. So I'd like to take the opportunity to just really highlight that MRGCD offers several fallowing programs. And as what's been previously stated, fallowing is a natural practice related to farming. What I think is a little bit different is the hydrologic realities that the Middle Valley is facing. I face them every day up and down the valley. And what that looks like is, it was mentioned that El Vado is not around right now. It's going through rehabilitation. The forecast, while it does look decent without summer storage and without being able to release water during the hottest portion of the year, MRGCD cannot guarantee irrigation deliveries after May. Short of having monsoon rain events, the irrigation season will be run of the river, and if we get rain, we'll deliver it at that point in time. If we don't, we won't. I think most people remember, or anyway, last season, 2021, this forecast was largely the same, except that the monsoon rain showed up. The success of our irrigation season will be on Mother Nature and rain. And so the fallowing program really does offer farmers the opportunity to take a look at what they're doing, if their operations is changing, or if it's time to lay a field to rest. The program is geared towards offering farmers a payment to do that, and what was encouraged by that is to take that money, reinvest it into the property, and to do things like was just mentioned, to make that property more efficient. Again, the hydrologic realities are that less water is entering this basin. If you go look at the snow telegraphs, we have less water, and we're more dependent now on monsoonal events. And until our infrastructure gets repaired, which hopefully we'll have partial storage back by 2024, full storage back by 2027, we have a tough road to hoe. And I haven't even gotten into compact debt. And so the program is there, and there are difficult decisions for all farmers to be made. And I recognize that, and the board of directors at the MRGC recognize that more than ever. And so I know I'm probably going close over my 3 minutes, but with that, I will yield. But I do want to support the program and support the difficult decisions made by all irrigators if they choose to fallow, because I understand it's a difficult decision.
Thank you. Gabby Coughlin. Thank you. If you would, state your name and your address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Lopez, trustees. I'm Gabriella Coughlin, 1931 2nd Street Southwest. I'm the agronomist and soil scientist for the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. I'm the first soil scientist and agronomist for the Conservancy District ever. And as many of you know, in partnership with the Village of Los Ranchos, we just recently stood up the state's only soil, water, and compost testing lab to be a resource to village residents as well as landowners across the state to help them understand how to balance the delicate challenge of water and soil health management. My passion is soils. My passion is healthy communities. Our programs that we offer through the Conservancy are here to do just that. Through the work of the Conservancy and partnerships with folks like the Village of Los Ranchos, we are literally digging deep and into our soils to understand what they're capable of during these tough, drought-stricken times. I work with state entities across New Mexico, State Game and Fish, Audubon, as others, and Candelaria Nature Preserve. They're all concerned about the same issues you are. But you know what we're all doing? We're all working together and we're looking at soils and understanding how from the ground up we can build a more collaborative approach to these discussions. And as Jacobo mentioned earlier, he is more than willing to walk the property. And I would actually encourage you all to go out with your iNaturalist phones and pick out which ones are actually cottonwoods and which ones are actually Chinese elms. Because during that time, you'll notice that there's far more elms on that property that cause hazards to those who walk below them, as well as prevent any extra water to enter into the fields to the crops that they need to. So I'm a resource for you all here tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. I will be teaching a class on cover crops and soils at the Agri-Nature Center. And this is where we can really get into more of the technical details of what practices like fallowing do to soils, and especially not even in the short term, but also the long term. So I'm here for solutions, and I'm also here to listen to your feedback, and we can find common ground literally on the ones that we stand on. I'll yield.
Thank you so much. If there's anybody present who did not sign up prior to tonight's meeting and would like to speak under public comment, please approach the podium. With being none, Mayor, that's the end of public comments.
We're going to move to item 6, which is the consent agenda. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item 6A is the minutes of the March 9th, 2022 regular meeting. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would have a correction.
Yes, please.
So can I just jump in?
Absolutely.
On page 14, let's see, numbers in red. Getting there. Okay, under Trustee Benavides, I said a lot of stuff, and I think it's fine. Nobody was trying to capture my word-to-word transcript, but what's written there doesn't capture much of anything. So let me just try to make it short and to the point. It says something about this is regarding speed bumps. I spoke to my neighbors on Guadalupe Trail. I found 2 strongly in favor of it, and a letter was read strongly against. Let me just summarize it by saying what I did say. I found that a third of the people were for it, a third were against it, and a third of the people were indifferent. And just leave it at that, okay? And you can leave the part where I said trade-off of the annoyances with safety attributes, and I'm willing to accept that.
Will the motion to approve the consent agenda insist that these corrections be made?
Mayor, I didn't receive who motioned.
Well, you haven't had a motion yet. I'm just
Okay.
asking if the motion is made, which we need a motion to approve, will it direct that these changes be made?
Yes, so we should have had the motion.
Well,
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve with the changes discussed by Trustee Benavides.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Item 7 now is proclamations and presentations. 7A, proclaiming Age-Friendly Allegiance Month. Administrator Simon.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Yes, our representative on the Department of Senior Affairs Advisory Board, Henry Schonerd, brought to our attention that the city of Albuquerque last year developed a set of recommendations that make up the Age-Friendly Action Plan. You'll see a letter by Mr. Schonerd at your place, which more accurately details the action plan. Essentially, it mirrors our 2035 master plan in laying out many goals that are to achieve a senior-friendly community, such as keeping people informed, respecting social inclusion, respecting social participation, et cetera. So we have a proclamation in front of you that we are hoping to adopt, which proclaims this month, April, the Age-Friendly Allegiance Month. And I stand for questions.
Thank you, Administrator Simon. Do the trustees have any questions? Because I intend to sign this proclamation. No. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 8, which is departmental reports. The departmental reports are included in the packet and reflect all the activities as listed. If the governing body has questions for staff regarding the reports, we will have each trustee ask all their questions before we move to the next trustee. I'm going to start with Trustee and Mayor Pro Tem Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a number of questions and comments, starting with Director or Administrator Ann Simon. Looking through the old Village Hall kind of proposed development, I just want to say it looks beautiful. Do we have an idea of what the size comparison is going to be between what's existing and what this new one will look like?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, it's about the same footprint. What I don't have yet is cost estimates from Decker Parish Sabatini. But aside from the ADA bathrooms on the south side, it's the exact same footprint.
Terrific, thank you. Moving on to Edgewood Park, it's discussed that there's going to be a new parking lot, a small parking lot, and a playground located on the property. Can you just explain what area that's going to be in?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, as you drive north on Edgewood from Osuna, it's the far east side of the park. There's already a small dirt turnout on the west side of the street, and we're just going to add some asphalt for some vehicles so we don't destroy the shoulder, and then put the playground on that end of the park.
Okay, so it'll be on the east, kind of in the middle of the park? Toward the north, though?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. With regard to the new parking signs, which look great also, thank you here on Rio Grande, will we be providing any kind of enforcement with regard to the parallel parking? How is that going to be addressed? Will we, as we know, everybody has their way of just parking in a place. If they come every week, that's where they park, that's how they park. How are we going to get those attending to comply with the parallel parking?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, you raise a great question, and we are going to be working with Bernalillo County Sheriff to help us with that enforcement, but it is going to be habit, and it is going to be, it's going to take time for people to change their habits.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, moving on to Village Center. Let's see, we received some funds, it looks like, from Bernalillo County's Rent Assistant Program. Was that for mobile home tenants?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, we applied as the landlord so that we would not have to go after the tenants.
Okay. And then with regard to the one remaining mobile home, I know you said that that's working its way through the legal process. Do we have an idea of how long that's going to take?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee, I just got some great news from Juan Flores that we should be getting a determination from the courts by Tuesday.
Fantastic. And that'll be the last one?
Yes.
To be removed. Great. Okay, thank you. Next questions are for Josh O'Halloran. Hi, Josh. The Earth Day celebration on April 23rd, is this an event that's open to the public, or is this just for the partners?
It's open to the public, yeah.
Okay, and we're advertising that?
Yeah, it's on the Facebook, it's on our website, and Eventbrite.
Awesome, thank you. And then the Nature Niños, who came to the Ag Center, who is that group?
So it's part of New Mexico Wildlife Federation. So it's a group of children. They were mostly homeschool children who meet on a weekly basis, elementary through middle school. There's 4 different classes, and they meet normally at shady lakes, sometimes in the bosque. They do different activities. They meet with Fish and Game, it's kind of an outdoor-based curriculum.
Awesome.
And so they each of the classes meet once a month at the Agri-Nature Center for agricultural outdoor activities.
That's great, awesome. And then with regard to Explora, did we have good attendance this year?
I'm sorry, Mayor, trustees. Yes, they are still limiting it due to COVID, so they capped it at 8 participants for the spring break. And this summer, they still have it at half capacity. Normally, they do 15. So each week, they're doing 8 weeks. Each week, they have it limited at 8 participants, but as the time gets closer, they'll make a determination on that.
Thank you. And let's see, the 20 fruit trees that were purchased by Interfaith Power and Light, who is this company? And how did they find us? How did that happen?
So Mayor, trustees, it's 40 trees now.
40 trees.
But
Great.
they're all in the ground now. This group is a interfaith group that there was a Sikh who passed away, and his wish was for trees to be planted in his honor. So what they do is they fundraise to have trees planted around the city. And so whenever they find an open space, park, or group that is willing to plant trees, they will provide the trees at no cost. And so I got in touch with them through Rio Grande Community Farm, who also got trees from them. And I told them we could use 40 trees to extend our orchard, and they purchased them for us.
Fantastic. And is that, are they different species of trees? Are they all the same? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so I don't have it laid out in front of me, but since we are a demonstration site, we have a variety of fruit trees. So everything from pomegranate, apricot, peach, apple, cherry, pear, plum. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And just wanted to say congratulations and outstanding news with regard to the build out of the trailer. We're good to go?
Yes, Mayor, trustees, yeah, we have cold storage now. So for everything coming out of the fields, we have a walk-in cooler that's portable that we can hitch onto a truck and take to where it needs to go. So
Great. Well, good luck this coming season. And with regard to the St. Pius High School group that came and helped clean the ditches and those type of things, are we actively soliciting those kinds of groups, or are they coming to us with, with wanting to donate their time? How's that all happening?
I think, Ann, you might want to answer that question because you meet with them occasionally.
Sure thing, Mayor Trustee. The St. Pius seniors have a community service requirement, and they reached out to us to see if they could help out in any way. And we had about 8,000 Easter eggs that needed stuffing, and we had a big ditch that needed cleaning. So they were great, and they helped us in both projects.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Joshua.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Just also wanted to comment with regard to the Planning and Zoning Department report. Just wanted to thank Jennifer. I know she's not here tonight, but she really did provide a lot of good things to the village in the years that she was here, and I just wanted to wish her well. Sorry, there's a bunch. Okay, so now talking about the road designs, and I know we've had a lot of public comment, we've had some meetings about it, and I know that there's been an alternative selected from our last meeting in terms of the wish list, I guess, of what people would like to see. I know we're doing more meetings, but I do just want to ensure that we still have the ability, and Maria, maybe you can answer this, to provide a transitional road as opposed to the road being one way all the way. Is that still, where are we on that, I guess?
So, Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, where we're at on that is we have completed the public information process. We're still taking comments that people have submitted online, and we recently included the data of the viewers on Facebook and YouTube. Danielle, please, on YouTube. So we're preparing that report for you, but we will be presenting all of the alternatives with the comments from the public for your selection of an alternative. But the alternatives that you will see are what have gone through the 30% design. You'll select that alternative, and we will direct the engineer to move forward with that design to 100% design complete.
Okay, so we're looking at the phases, right? So it would be the design for phase one, that would be the selection, and then phase two would come at a later time?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, actually, because we are funded for 100% design, we are designing all the way to the village limit.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they cannot be addressed as the phases of construction, which again, just for public information, though the project will be designed all the way to north of Ortega, it will be constructed in phases from Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos Road as phase 2A, from Ranchitos Road to either immediately north or immediately south of the Paseo Bridge, dependent on our coordination with NMDOT, that is their facility. And then from there, the third phase will go all the way to the village limits. So there is opportunity to address them differently, but the intent with the funding that we have is to design it 100% for the length of the remainder of our stretch of the corridor.
Okay, understood.
Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
Yep. And then with regard to the Village Center project, again, the sketch plat review, so did that happen on April 7th?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, it did. It was myself, Ms. Justice, and Ann Simon, along with the Palindrome representatives, and we are reviewing and commenting on all of the information that was provided to us, and we have some questions, procedural questions to discuss with our council that we're working on at the moment now. So we'll be prepared to report on that, hopefully by the next meeting.
Thank you. And then I think this is the last one for you, Maria. The notification of status for the funding of the application for Chavez. Any idea on timing?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, what we did hear, unfortunately, was that they do not yet know how much money they have to distribute. They have not been informed by the federal government what the state's allocation for transportation alternative program is, which is kind of, doesn't make sense to put out a call for projects if you don't know your funding. But I'm taking that, and this is conjecture. I'm taking that with the infusion of stimulus money, they may be receiving more than what their target was. That's my hope. But until they know that number, everyone was supposed to have heard by the first week of April, and now we just don't know what the status of our application is.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Next question, I guess, is for Fred, on the public safety report. Good evening.
Good evening.
During our retreat, I think a big focus, as JT Michelson had mentioned, was, well, he didn't mention, but a big portion of it we talked about was crime in the village and taking a proactive approach to addressing the crime. Do we know what our next steps are there? I know it's a concern for the community. I mean, we've heard it a couple of times tonight. Would we consider doing some town hall meetings or or something like that moving forward?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, trustees, I think that would be a great idea to try and get some input from the public on what their concerns are. At that time, we could have the captain, the North Valley commander at the meetings and stuff, and he can kind of explain how they do things. And so I think I stated at that meeting, we need to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And I think we've discussed that internally a little bit. And I have a meeting, I think, next week with the captain to discuss some of the things that we can work together on. But I think if we could try and put a couple of those meetings together would be an excellent idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks.
And I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pacheco. Trustee Benavides.
Yes. Just a quick, I'm sorry. Yes, just a quick comment and a question for Director Tiffany Justice. So, yeah, I saw that Jennifer Schilling's leaving, and I was saddened to hear that. And I wish her well, and I got to know her when I was on the P&Z, and she was always very easy for me to work with. So, yeah, I just wish her well. And then the question. Okay, so I noticed the bullet saying beginning work on potential noise ordinance revisions that align our noise limits closer to the surrounding metropolitan area. So that was pretty interesting. What sort of highlights can you give us about that? What changes might we see?
So Mayor, Trustee Benavides, trustees, that specific bullet point talks about decibel limits and decibel limits that constitute a noise violation in the Village of Los Ranchos and in other jurisdictions like the City of Albuquerque or Bernalillo County. Right now, so our decibel levels are lower than the surrounding area, but they are low enough to, at this point, I'm violating the noise ordinance if I was at the property line. So we're trying to make them more reasonable to what is actually conversation level, above conversation level, something that actually constitutes a noise violation, something that's irritating or disruptive. So in addition to that, we're also looking at some other changes to see whether or not we should make exceptions for certain things.
I'm sorry?
We're seeing whether or not we should make exceptions for certain things. One example, there are other jurisdictions that exempt school activities like recess or sporting events. Is that something that we would want to consider? So those are the things that I'm looking at with changes to the noise ordinance, and I'm hoping to have a draft or at least some questions for your consideration next month.
Okay, but so I'm a little surprised. You're saying, just to make sure I heard you right, that the dB levels may be raised? Is that what you said?
Yes. Right now, our decibel levels are 5 decibel levels lower than the surrounding area, which I know doesn't sound like much, but they're logarithmic, which means that it's not like a one-for-one comparison. I guess, for example, a vacuum cleaner is like 70 decibels. And right now, our decibel limits are 55. So I'll be able to come up with, I'll be able to present this more in depth.
Okay.
At this point, I'm doing research and hoping to either come up with a draft or some questions for you next month.
Okay, but it doesn't include things like helicopters and leaf blowers and things like that, which people find pretty annoying, right? You're not touching that. Okay.
Brad, go ahead.
Mayor and Trustee Benavides and Tiffany. Tiffany, I've been working on this for quite some time, discussing it. If you and Trustee Rednovich were having a conversation along your back fence at night, that conversation would violate our noise ordinance to your neighbors. So what we're trying to do is come up with a reasonable approach because a leaf blower absolutely violates our noise ordinance. A lawnmower violates our noise ordinance. And so what we're trying to do is come up with a reasonable approach to figure out how we're gonna manage this, because we have been getting a lot of complaints. We're looking at Bernalillo County's ordinances, looked at Corrales, for example, Rio Rancho, for example. they don't have decibel levels, they have unreasonable noise. I've checked with some of the courts in there. There's never been a complaint ever filed in municipal court in those cases. So we're trying to work on something to maintain the peace of the village, but also to make it reasonable so that when the mayor is out mowing his lawn, that the neighbor doesn't call and say, the mayor can't mow his lawn.
Too loud.
So those are the types of things that we're trying to come up with a balancing act before we present anything to you.
Okay, I mean, I won't belabor it, but it's an interesting topic to talk about, because not all noises are created equal, right? Right. Some noises sound pleasant and some are pretty annoying.
Exactly.
But I'll just leave it at that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is for Administrator Simon. In your report on safety, it talks about that we are going to move forward with the speed humps on Guadalupe. Can you tell me a little bit about the process? I know we've gotten input from people. I wasn't here last month to hear Trustee Benavidez' discussion a little bit. And so if you could just tell me how the process that we got to making that decision.
Sure thing. Mayor, Trustee Lewis, and I might need Fred back up here.
Yeah.
So this issue started with some letters from residents along Guadalupe Trail that they were concerned about speeding on Guadalupe Trail. So we have been looking at Guadalupe Trail for the last 2 years. We've been moving signboards around. We've been having BCSO patrol, and it's all over the board. There are certain times of the day when we see speeders. BCSO didn't find too much of a problem. Our speed boards picked up some speeding, some under the speed limit. But the overall sentiment from neighbors who expressed their opinion to us was that they felt unsafe walking along Guadalupe Trail. I think I'll turn it over to Fred on the process.
So the process was, and Keen and I, one of the things I think that you all put in one of your plans was road safety. And so Keen and I have been discussing the road safety issues for years and different things. And so we looked at all of Guadalupe Trail, and that's where we decided to add and consider 2 stop signs, 3-way stops, 4-way stops, one at El Pueblo and Guadalupe Trail, and the second one, I think, at Ranchitos and Guadalupe Trail, which is a very blind intersection. That will then allow us to do some things. And then Keen and I went through there, and in order to maintain that traffic flow and slow the people down, if we only put 1 or 2 speed humps, it's really not going to do much because there's too much of a distance in between. So we came up, I think, originally Keen and I came up with the plan to put, I think there was 9 or 10. We looked at that plan again. Actually, Trustee Benavidez went out with us, and we walked the entire thing and kind of strategically, again, placed them a little bit so that if somebody's going through and they don't really want to go through all the speed humps, there's alternatives for them to go back onto 4th Street before they hit another speed bump. And so that's kind of the process. We plan on signing it. We plan on making it so people can't drive around it, because that's what a lot of people will do at times. And then hopefully that works. If it doesn't, in the long-range plan, there's a long-range plan, according to Keen, is to repave Guadalupe Trail anyway, and when you repave it, you can take them out, if that doesn't work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just have a comment on Hartnett Park. You said you were looking at lighting. I've had a lot of success. There's a company I deal with that does solar lighting. Saves a lot of money from having to run electricity to all these lights. So I'll be glad to give you that name. My next question's for Josh. I know you were just dying to get back up here, weren't you? Could you tell us a little bit about, I thought it was pretty interesting about the United World College and the students coming from there. Could you tell us a little bit about their visit? How many of them were there and some of the things you mentioned that you did?
Sure, Mayor, Trustee Lewis, trustees. Yeah, the United World College from Las Vegas, well, just outside of Las Vegas, New Mexico, came and visited us. They were doing a week-long field trip around different areas of New Mexico, and they wanted to learn about the hydrology of the region of the Middle Rio Grande and soils, and ask some questions about that. So we had, I was going to see if Gabby was still here, but we had 15 students and 2 instructors, and they're from all over the world, and Gabriella Coughlin was with us, and she spoke about a little bit about the hydrology and the soils. They also wanted to do a service project while they were there, so they did some planting in the community garden. We planted a lot of onions, and we also built a demonstration tool, which is clear tubes that we have planted different kinds of cover crops in, and it's in a stand so that we can watch the roots as they grow and see how they affect the soil and how deep they can draw water from below and create organic matter in the soil. So they built that, and we actually discussed fallowing programs and the trade-offs of those things and the difficult decisions of those, and sustainable agriculture and those kind of thing, and similar things happening in Ethiopia and the different countries that they're in. So, yeah.
Great, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Tiffany, first of all, I'd just like to add my comments on thanking Jennifer for doing such a wonderful job for the village. I think she did an outstanding job. She did a wonderful job with the magazine, as well as her regular duties. So please pass along my thank you to her. Next, my questions are for Maria. First of all, Maria, thank you for all you're doing. My first question is, I assume someday this won't be on our report each month, and that's the finalizing of 4th Street and the changes that are coming and the credit that's supposed to be coming.
Yes.
I know you're as tired of dealing with it as I am of seeing it on our monthly report. So if you can give me a status there.
Mayor Trustee Lewis, I actually anticipate your questions every trustee meeting, and I'm very happy to report that all we are lacking now is the cost from the subcontractor for the installation of the repairs and installation replacement of the failed Riccobini pavers. That is literally all I'm waiting for. We have negotiated every other item on the final change order for review by NMDOT, and they've been through this process with me as well. So we are almost there. And I was so disappointed to have to tell the mayor that it doesn't look like we will close that contract out before the end of the fiscal year, because we really look forward to transferring that balance of funds into improvements on the next phases, but it's not going to happen before the closeout of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And I continue to have conversations with Bradbury Stam on at least 3 times a week. So it is simply, they are waiting for the final cost estimate from that subcontractor.
Okay, thank you. My next question for you. Where are we at on getting the final task order and road design from Bohannon Houston on the Ag Center?
Yes, Mayor Trustee Lewis, as soon as an alternative is presented and accepted by the Board of Trustees, that will close out the 30% design, and that will end that funding portion through the state road fund money. That will be closed out, and we will then be authorized to issue a task order under the retainer agreement to Bohannon for the 100% design under the transportation project fund monies that we have as secured. So we plan to present the alternatives for your consideration and selection in May. If that happens, they will do the final, BHI will do the final report, and we will be prepared to submit all that for final audit to NMDOT and execute a task order to submit to them for disbursement of that $750,000. And we will be ready to go.
Okay. Okay. You answered my question on the sketch plan. Okay, that's all I have. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Trustee George Radnovich.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see. And the first question I have is for you, and it's the very first sentence on your 4th Street bullet, which says the initial reaction to alternatives presented was alternative 4. That was well, it actually doesn't say this, but does that try to say that alternative 4 is the preferred one at the public meeting?
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, that sentence came from Jeanette Walther.
Okay.
Because they had a tally and they folded papers and they put them in the back of the room, and alternative 4 was the presiding selection.
I really like thank you. I really like the look of the old Village Hall, but I have one concern. I mean, I think it looks really nice. It looks like a nice update to what the Village Hall maybe used to be look like with an updated look. But I know that I've been talking to Mayor Keller or actually his police office, his police chief, and there's been all around Albuquerque, and I've noticed it in the village actually at the El Camino restaurant. A lot of glass has been broken in all around the city, up and down 4th Street, up and down Central Avenue, San Mateo, all over the city. And my only concern about this, although I like the way it looks, is that glass looks like it could be a target. So I just wanted to say, I think this has a really nice look to it, has a nice updated feel, but the glass worries me a bit.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, if I could just quickly appreciate that comment, and this was a very first set of concept drawings. There's about 4 other pictures, but I'm waiting to give you the whole packet until I get the cost estimate. So I just wanted to kind of give you a tease because we were really excited about it, but not only safety, but expense. So I'm too worried about the glass.
Okay, just a thought. I was wondering why we're including a small parking lot at Edgewood Park. Most of that neighborhood, the Edgewood neighborhood, use that space, and the neighborhood to the south, I don't remember what that neighborhood's called, but I wondered why a parking lot. Are we inviting people to go there at a higher level than maybe go now? Because there's quite a bit of parking on, is it Edgewood Street, the street to the east of the park?
So Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, as I mentioned before, we're seeing the shoulder is degrading because people keep pulling over. So if you drive down Edgewood to the north of Osuna, you'll see there's a spot for probably 3 cars on the shoulder, but it's all dirt. So we're just trying to improve that area. And it won't be a large parking lot, but just for a few cars to pull off.
Will it be crusher fines? Will it be
I don't
asphalt?
have that yet.
We haven't decided, right? I don't believe. Okay.
I would recommend something permeable. Again, I'd like to see the design. I'm looking forward to seeing the design for the road to the Agri-Nature Center. I'm worried about some of the trees we'll be taking down. And I know there's Siberian elms, but Siberian elms have a place in our environment too. I have heard from quite a few constituents about the whole fallowing idea, and I see that as the 3rd bullet under the Agri-Nature Center. So the Del Norte property. So are we planning to do, I mean, there are quite a few people mentioning it here tonight. Are we planning to do any kind of public hearing, public meeting
May I answer
about
that
that?
question? May I answer that question? I think the decision belongs to the administration with input from the governing body. If all 4 trustees or 3 trustees say we will not want to fallow it and have good reason for it, I don't know why we would do it. I mean, I'm just being brutally honest. I mean, in my opinion, there isn't going to be enough water. And if water is cut off in June, then it's gonna be fallowed naturally, if you understand what I'm saying. There won't be any water to even place on that property. But what I also heard tonight was our staff and the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy is very experienced in how to fallow land, how to keep trees alive, how to maintain the environment. But it's really, this is the governing body. I'm not gonna make the decision by myself. I want input, and the bottom line is we've already applied.
Mayor, I'm not suggesting that fallowing isn't the right idea.
Okay.
I am just saying, we really didn't have public input.
That's correct, and there was no reason to have it because the decision was, we had to apply. What was the deadline for the application, Ann?
I believe Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, this week is the deadline.
The deadline's this Friday. We had to make the decision, submit the application. But obviously, when the general public found out about it, they wanted to comment, and that's the right thing to do. Here we are. We've heard a lot of comment.
Mayor, all I'm suggesting
Go ahead.
is that we have public meetings for things like that in the future, because that open space is not just an open space. That open space is part park. So people use it like a park.
Sure.
So fallowing a park is a little bit different than fallowing just raw land.
I'm not sure that's correct, but nevertheless, this is a governing body. The governing body has the right to call a special meeting whenever they want to. It takes the majority of the governing body. So if any member of the governing body gets a comment or communication from the general public, you contact us, we'll call a special meeting. So the answer to your question is absolutely, we can do that. Okay? We did not do it in this case. We submitted the application.
I would suggest at this point that we do.
Sure, no, I understand that, of course. Ann, do you want to add any more to this at all?
Yeah, I actually asked you, Ann.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, we chose to submit our application for the fallowing program based on information that we received from the agronomist at the Agri-Nature Center, our AgriFutures, Regenerative Agriculture Committee, as well as our farmer, who we have newly anointed. And I am not an expert in water resources. All I know is that there's 1, 2 at most waterings. So whatever seed you plant, you're probably gonna lose anyway. This is a good time to share the water, let people whose livelihoods don't depend on farming, take the water.
Yeah, again, my comment's not about that. My comment's about the public.
We understand.
Let's see, Josh, you don't have to come up. I just wanted to say, everything I read on your report is really great. I think you're doing a great job, and all the World College visit I thought was a really excellent thing that happened, because those people come from all over the world to little old New Mexico, and here they came to Los Ranchos, and it's a wonderful thing when we have that. I also when we have them come. I also wanted to thank you for having the Earth Day celebration. I think that's an awesome thing as well. We should be doing more of that. So very nice. Tiffany, I didn't have, oh wait, I did have one thing. Oh, I know what it was. Under your report on the report items for public hearings, there's one for the site development plan, the one preliminarily approved. Is that for the Village Center? Is that for the Village Center project that Palindrome's doing?
So Trustee Radnovich, Mayor, Trustees, no. These are all public hearings that go before the Planning and Zoning Commission or are administratively approved.
Nice.
So in this case, anything that is related to Village Center will not be included in this list because that will be highlighted elsewhere in Administrator Simon and Maria Minaldi's reports.
Great. So there's more going on than just that. Maria, I have a few for you, as you probably would have guessed. I think, I heard you say that that was the last public meeting. I think we need to have more. I don't think that the turnout was awesome. I thought that it was okay, and I think we should have more, I think we should hear more from the public about the future of 4th Street in the new phases of work. So I'm a little disappointed that we're not going to have another public meeting. I'm a lot disappointed, actually. You mentioned, I think, at the public meeting that we advertised for that meeting.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, we certainly did.
Where did we advertise?
We advertised on all the social media, on the website. We have an email list of people who are interested in, have received information on 4th Street project in the past. And I personally walked the entire corridor and gave out notices of the public information hearing.
I think it would be good to hear from village residents because we had so much more turnout during the first phase planning and then design. So I would request that we at least consider having more public input.
If I could jump in, Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, all 5 alternatives will be published in the Village Vision.
I get that. But there's something about a public meeting when people come and comment, and it makes, something someone else says may, cause them to have other comments. And so public meetings offer a lot more conversation about a project and a lot more discourse than simply putting it in the vision. So I'm just recommending or hoping we have more public meetings. I don't know how we can go about that, but I'll push a little harder.
Well, let me ask this question, in kind of discussion, because this is an important topic.
Yep.
Just because we select the 30% design doesn't mean that it cannot be amended and that you can't have public comment during the 30 to 100% design. I've seen that a million times. So I don't think we're shutting the door to public comment. What I'm saying is that once we agree on an alternative that is preferred, perhaps that might be the right word, then during the 30 to 100% design, there can easily be more public comments, easily, in my opinion. Now, Maria, tell me what's your opinion.
Excuse me, Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, as it is a requirement of the funding source that public information input meetings are held throughout the process of 100%. So the 30 design process was to come up with a general idea of how we're going to address the larger ideas of improvements on the roadbed itself. Are we going to reduce lanes? Is there going to be a sidewalk on one side, both sides? Is it going to be, you have to have a starting point. 30% design basically gives you the idea to move forward with. There will be, in the scope of 30%, we met all the requirements for public input. It was not just the public information meeting, but we've been reporting on this for well over a year. And people have commented during those presentations and during reporting periods. So all of that is compiled in the report. But we have to have a basis to move forward with. And that's what 30% design says. How are you going to deal with stormwater? How are you going to deal with pedestrian safety? How are you going to deal with vehicular speeds? And what are you going to do to incorporate this with the existing improvements and the existing conditions on the unimproved areas of 4th Street? I personally thought that the public input we received was phenomenal for a 30% design, considering especially since there was so much input leading up to the construction of Phase 1. There is a master plan that is being followed. The design does meet the goals and intent of the 4th Street revitalization project. We just want to move forward with this basic design of a 60-foot wide right-of-way and how we are going to address the improvements. In this period, we will discuss things like areas of landscape. What are the cost alternatives that we can build into the cost estimate for bidding that may allow us to add more furniture, address lighting at intersections, pedestrian lighting, wider sidewalks without the need to acquire property. That's not something this project can afford. We actually have an application in for a federal earmark for right-of-way acquisition for the property that we need outside of the public right-of-way to provide for stormwater facility and parking, possibly, and for the roundabout at Ranchitos Road. So we're addressing things by phase, even though we're designing the whole project, but we need a starting point. And that's what 30% design does. The amenity that the public and we may decide to build in will be built in 100%. Again, I have to always caution, that's dependent on funding. This next phase, just to Ranchitos Road, not even including the acquisition of property for the right-of-way I mentioned, is almost $9 million. And that's not without the level of amenity that we have in the most beautiful phase that will be in this project, which is what has been recently constructed. That's just the reality. But will be ample opportunity for public discussion on additions to the basis of design, which is what 30% gives us.
Marie, I know how the process works, so you don't have to go into great detail about that, so thanks. I'm just saying I think we should have more, and I thought I heard you say that there wasn't going to be any more.
No, there will be more. No,
Good.
That's a misconception.
No,
There will be more.
Yeah, absolutely. I never said that. I said the public information that we have solicited now was strictly for 30% design.
Exactly, yeah.
So I have another question, and this has got to do with the art in public places. Have we talked about that at all?
Not in 30% design.
Okay. Again, I'd like to see the drawings for the Agri-Nature Center Road. I mentioned that to Ann too. I wondered where, and this doesn't have anything to do with the roadway improvements project. Where are we doing a crack seal on 4th Street and Rio Grande? I'm just curious.
I can send you the termini of the whole project. I think I sent it to you on the one that's about to take place, for which we just issued the notice of award. I will do the same with this, but this is for application, and we really don't know until we're funded. We never get funded at the level that we request. So there's termini in that, and I will send it to you. I'll send it out to all trustees.
Good. Great. Already talked about Chavez Road. I'm done. Thank you.
All right. We can now move on to item 9, financial business. Discussion and approval of the March 22 cash report. Treasurer Will Fisher.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Before you is the cash report for March 31st. I have to make some corrections to it, and I apologize. I mistold Tammy some things when we were making some corrections, and we didn't get the narrative updated, and that's on me. So bear with me. Ending cash balance as of March 31st, 2022 is $9,465,377.86, which is an increase of $131,701.41 for the month, and year-to-date, which is a year-to-date excess of revenues over expenditures of $2,269,968.70. There's some unusual and significant items, but Tammy knows much better than I.
Mayor, trustees, for the unusual and significant items, there are 3. The first one is for the
Audit payment, the final audit payment for the FY21 audit services was made to Hadamio Accounting Group for $6,654.81. The second unusual or significant item is for attorney's fees. During the month of March, we had 2 payments go out, one at the beginning of the month, one at the end of the month due to timing. And so that was for a total of $31,905.97. And the last unusual or significant item is for a payment from the Ag Committee Special Funds to Dan Jerry for the agri-futures for $5,097.09.
Okay, before we get to any questions for either Will Fisher or Tammy, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second it, but shouldn't there be, the motion include the corrections?
Yep. I'll back up and say I will make a motion to approve the cash report with stated changes.
I will second that.
Thank you. So now, are there any questions or discussions from the governing body? Okay, being none, I'm going to call.
I have
Go right
one,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure which is the best page for you all to look at, the red 38 or, okay. It's the statement of revenue and expenditures for the year. The general obligation bonds. I'm a little confused. We're showing a revised budget of $317,000, and we've got a cash basis year-to-date of $2,107,000.
Yes, so Mayor, trustees, that is due to the refunding. So before we refunded the bond in November, our payment would have been just the $300,000, but because we refunded and we have the new bond of $1.9 million, it now shows in there in that balance.
Okay, great, Tammy, thank you. That's the only question I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any further questions from the governing body? Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
We're going to move to item 9B, discussion and approval of resolution number 2022-04-01, audit acknowledgement, CFO Tammy Silva.
Yes, Mayor, trustees, before you is this resolution 2022-04-01. This is for the FY21 audit, which was presented to you last month by the Hadamio Accounting Group. And this resolution is to acknowledge the completion of the audit and accepting the audit. This will then be turned into the state, which is required by DFA. And I stand for any questions if you have any.
Okay, before we get to questions, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-04-01.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there any discussion or questions from the governing body? Being none, call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Item C, discussion and approval of resolution number 2022-04-02, a budget adjustment request. CFO Tammy Silva.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. So for this second resolution for 2022-04-02, this is for a budget adjustment request. And this budget adjustment request is for one of our NMDOT projects. And this capital project is in the 311 fund. It is part of the road fund. And Danielle, do you mind going to the next page? Thank you. So this is showing you that we have a state grant that's coming in at $70,000 from NMDOT, and we are going to be expending that $70,000 before the end of the fiscal year. We have a match for this project. The match was already budgeted. However, due to the timing and when this was coming in, it did not get into the budget at the beginning of the year because we didn't have a signed agreement until after July 15th. And so this is just going ahead and adding this into the budget, which is required by law, by state statute, that we have any expenditures on the budget.
Thank you, Tammy. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-04-02.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the governing body? Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Great. Item 10, public hearings and/or applications for appeal. 10A is agreement to remand appeal of BB 21-12, an appeal of the December 14th, 2021 Village of Los Ranchos Planning and Zoning Commission denial of an application by Maria Montoya and Christopher Houghton for a bed and breakfast permit as allowed by Section 9.2.25 parentheses E parentheses 1 in the A1 zone in the North Rio Grande character area. The property is located at 8650 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest and is legally known as Lot A1 plat for lands of Annie Robertson, lots A1, D1, and D2 within the town of Alameda Grande, projected Section 17, Township 11 North, Range 3 East, New Mexico Principal Meridian, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, as filed in the office of the Bernalillo County Clerk on December 27, 1996. The property contains 1.6107 acres, more or less. Attorney Nan Winter.
Mayor, trustees, as you know, on December 14th of 2021, the Village P&Z voted on a 3-2 vote to deny the above referenced bed and breakfast permit, finding that the application was incomplete and therefore did not meet the requirements of 9.2.25. The notification of decision was issued, and an applicant, in this case, Mr. Houghton and Ms. Montoya, timely filed their notice of appeal of this document, of this application. Since that time, both applicant and Planning and Zoning Director Justice agree that the application referenced in this application is now complete and should be remanded back to the commission and should be considered on the merits, subject to the conditions in this agreement to remand. The conditions subject to remand include all notice issues. They will be required to post in the yard. They will be, the village will make timely notice as required by ordinance, and the village will make notice as required by the Albuquerque Journal. If you approve this motion to remand, it'll go right back to P&Z while they will hear the application on its merits. Neither the village nor the applicant are precluded in any way or limited in making their arguments one way or the other as to whether this should be approved or not. Public comment will be taken again on this issue. If you deny the agreement to remand and do not remand back to Planning and Zoning, it will be scheduled for appeal on the merits before you next month.
Thank you, Attorney Winter. Before we get to the additional written comments, I do need a motion.
I'll make a motion to agree to remand appeal of BB 21-12 back to P&Z.
I need a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Before we get to the written comments, is there any discussion from the governing body?
Yes, Mayor. I do need to recuse myself because I was on the Planning and Zoning at that time, and because of the judicial code, it's only proper that I recuse myself.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the governing body before we get to the additional written comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. The clerk has received additional written comments from the residents that also submitted comments at the public hearing held on December 14, 2021. Danielle, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and trustees, I've received 2 written comments. I'm going to go ahead with the first one. My name is Jacqueline Reedy. I reside at 8640 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest, Los Ranchos, 87114. I am writing to express my strong opposition in allowing 8650 Rio Grande Boulevard to be used as a short-term rental in the village of Los Ranchos. This issue was previously raised when Maria Montoya and Christopher Houghton began without the village's approval, listing and renting the guest house on Airbnb.com. The impact on our neighborhood was quickly noticed. I personally had guests of their rental walking into my yard in order to take pictures of my horse. They were politely asked to leave, but it was indicative of what I'm sure would be a frequent occurrence. A similar instance occurred with the renters of the main house during the pandemic. A guest of the home and her 2 children walked east on the road, and instead of stopping at the road's end, proceeded walking onto my property back to the horse stable. Unfortunately, I only saw this on my security footage when I was alerted due to the motion. The intrusiveness of constant hotel guests coming and going from the house would be felt more so by the neighbors as opposed to the property owners. Furthermore, the owners of the property do not even live here to monitor any activity. Recently, there has been several instances of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office at the 8650 Rio Grande property. This is of great concern to me as I am a law enforcement officer myself. I intentionally make the necessary sacrifices to live in the village of Los Ranchos for peace and quiet. What makes the village of Los Ranchos so unique is maintaining the same quiet nature of years past in an area which has now become so chaotic. For perspective, as of August 2021, there were 78 homicides in the Albuquerque metro area. Of the 78 homicides, 16 of those murders happened at hotels and motels. I do not feel the village should allow its quiet nature to be lost by creating small hotels to pop up everywhere. Owning a home in the village should not be a way of pimping out the nice community to make a buck. As a resident who would be greatly impacted by a cheap hotel next door, I urge the village to deny the request of a short-term rental at 8650 Rio Grande Boulevard. I encourage all who are in charge of short-term rental decisions to not allow the village of Los Ranchos to be sold out to pop-up hotels. Please keep the village beautiful and peaceful. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Concerned resident of the village of Los Ranchos, Jacqueline Reedy. The second comment tonight is from Mr. Peter Driscoll. My understanding is that the P&Z Commission voted on the application, not the question as to whether or not the application was complete. So I don't understand how the application can be reopened at this point. I request that my prior letter and the above statement be presented at the appeal hearing. My wife and I live adjacent to 8650 Rio Grande, and our driveway borders the northern property line of 8650 near both the main house and the guest house. We have participated in all of the prior village hearings and appeals regarding the creation of a bed and breakfast at 8650 Rio Grande, either in the main house or the guest house. I remain opposed to bed and breakfast activity in either dwelling at 8650 Rio Grande. I have reviewed the 1214 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes and viewed the relevant discussion online. I note that the motion to deny the permit was seconded and then carried. Chairman Seavey stated that the public hearing on item 4-D, the request by Maria Montoya and Christopher Houghton for bed and breakfast permit was formally closed. The appeal focuses on the denial of a continuance. It appears to me that Mr. Houghton and Ms. Montoya were offered every opportunity to submit a timely application, but continued to submit an incomplete and confusing application. The village staff bent over backwards to accommodate the applicants who were nevertheless unable to complete the process. The appeal only continues the legalistic obfuscation and confusion generated by all of the previous filings and arguments made by Mr. Houghton and Ms. Montoya. After reading the appeal twice, I am still not clear if the appeal is of the denial of a continuance or of the denial of the B&B permit. I remind the board that the application was based on false assertion that the applicant was operating an established B&B and therefore should be grandfathered in to allow a non-conforming permit which would not require the owner to be on site. The neighbors remain opposed to issuance of a B&B permit for 8650 Rio Grande. for all the reasons that have been advanced over the last 3 years. The applicants have not met the requirements to be grandfathered in to a non-conforming usage both on factual and procedural grounds. Enough is enough. The neighborhood deserves to have this matter put to rest. I urge you to deny the appeal. Sincerely, Peter Driscoll, 8716 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest, Los Ranchos, New Mexico, 87114. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, the following residents that signed up to speak tonight also participated in the public hearing on December the 14th, 2021. Mr. Christian Reedy, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Are you going to speak tonight?
Yes, I would, but with your permission, can we have Bill Shen speak first?
I think that might be a problem. Attorney Winter, did he speak at the December 14th meeting?
He did, all three of us.
Okay, so then that's fine, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Mr. Shen, please state your full name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Bill Shen. I'm living 8646 Rio Grande Boulevard. I'm directly south of 8650 bed and breakfast application in question. I come to this meeting basically expecting that the appeal will be reviewed. I understand we're not trying to relitigate this. We're going to go over the fact and the argument about the presentation that was in the P&Z meeting. But what I heard is we're going to do this remand decision. Something happened. Shouldn't we be talking about going over the fact first and then eventually arrive to the decision, which could be denial of the appeal or accept or remand could be in fact one of the outcome. But I did not hear the argument. You seem like I slept through this part. Don't we have a sort of open meeting act where this type of discussion need to be presented to the people involved? So I don't understand how do we jump from appeal to remand. That's something's missing here that I'm puzzled over that.
Well, we can't comment on that because you're doing public comment. So once the public comment has been given to the Board of Trustees, then they're gonna have a chance to deliberate, and they can start to open the discussion, and they can say whatever they want at that point, okay? Continue, you have a few more minutes.
All right. I felt this particular application is that grandfather in of this application where they could be absentee landowner was particularly odious to me. Because that means there are going to be a lot more people living there, and there's going to be rental there. There could be the landowners not there to sort of watch over them, and the people is less respectful if the owner is not present. So that's one I particularly object to. And this grandfather in got slid in August of last year, and then through delay in the application, through this irregular procedure things, is now pushed all the way out to now in April, and then we're talking about remain into June. This 10-month delay, I felt the administration is very accommodating to them, making basically tell them how to fill in the paperwork correctly, just so they could kind of pass this hurdle, various type of procedural hurdle, whereas the neighbor are very angry. The Driscoll, the Maesta, the Reedy, myself, we're all around this over the course of 10 months, in fact, longer than that. The history goes further back than that. That there is this sort of open wound that's being constantly delayed and delayed and delayed.
Mr. Shen, I apologize for the interruption, but you have reached your 3 minutes. If you want to go ahead and close up your comments.
Please deny this, let them start over, and I will not object for the record if they're going to go back and file this thing 6 months later, because they will no longer will have that grandfather clause about absentee owner.
Thank you. Mr. Christian Reedy, is it your turn or is Maria Reedy? Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Maria.
Please state your full name and address for the record.
My name is Maria Reedy, and I live at 8642 Rio Grande. Good evening, Mayor and trustees, and all involved in tonight's meeting. When this short-term rental issue was first looked at, we were assured many times by various village staff members that all applications would be decided on a case-by-case basis, taking into consideration the neighbors' thoughts and opinions. I think just reading this appeal is proof enough that this denial should stand. They had the same opportunity that all the applicants had. Every problem they cited is someone else's fault: the village, the neighbors, their jobs, very busy lives, etc. In the other applicants to be grandfathered in, all approved. None had objections from the neighbors, and many even had recommendations. Clearly, it works in their situation. The applications provided required documentations, drawings, and they were very clear and submitted on time. This application was not clear at all. There didn't seem to be much thought put into it. It was changed after they read the neighbors' opposition letters. They couldn't even be bothered with getting the public notice sign up. Can you imagine what would happen if there were problems with an Airbnb? They don't even live in this country. The applicant said in their appeal that the neighbors had little inconvenience with this process. This is so wrong. How casually they dismiss all the emotion, concern, and time taken by so many different neighbors to express and defend our rights. It is not easy to come out against your neighbors. The experiences we've all had with Maria and Chris is that they have not been respectful to the neighbor's property, privacy, or security. They don't seem to care. The property is on a very narrow strip of land between two private drive roads and directly impacts several other homes. 6 directly impacted neighbors have written letters of opposition. No neighbor has expressed support. This is clearly nothing more than a financial enterprise for them. They are currently renting long-term, and when they come back, they claim to desire to live in the house. My desire is to remind all concerned that the rest of us live here. We've lived here for decades. We want to continue to live here. Please consider our rights. The Planning and Zoning Committee denied their application for numerous reasons. This Board of Trustees should deny this appeal and put this to bed once and for all, showing the residents that the village trustees and planning and zoning and people are listening to the residents. I thank you very much for your time.
Christian, it's your turn.
If you would, please state your full name and address for the record, please.
My name is Christian Reedy. I live at 8642 Rio Grande. Mr. Mayor and trustees, thank you for your patience. I just didn't want to be redundant in some of the things that are said. I'd like to wish everybody here tonight a blessed and joyful Easter season coming up. I feel it's sufficient to state that I concur with all the previously mentioned objections. I don't wish to be redundant. Our neighborhood was forced to endure a lengthy, hotly contested debate over the short-term renting of the guest house at 8650. Much discussion between the neighbors, the Planning and Zoning Commission, deferrals, appeals to the Board of Trustees, deferred decisions, and even appeals all the way up to the New Mexico State Court of Appeals. But at last, we put this contentious issue behind us. The long-established village code upheld no renting of a guest house. The application before you now, BB 21-12, submitted on 10/6 of 21, initially requested to be grandfathered to rent both dwellings at 8650 as remote off-site short-term rentals. This tore open that fresh wound of the guest house battles, gushing out all that old emotion and frustration of that recent ordeal. So understandably, we all responded. After reading these responses, the applicant requested a November deferral. The applicant essentially retakes control, modifies the application, and again submits it for consideration at the December Planning and Zoning meeting. At this point, however, the applicant had failed to provide sufficient required documents and had failed to follow standard protocol for public notice. These shortcomings were their own responsibilities. No other person or entity or village had failed. This, of course, resulted in a recommendation for denial from the director. During the discussion, the reasons for not posting correctly and a request for an additional deferral, in my opinion, were not justified or deserved. The commissioners apparently agreed. Having been a part of this and reading the appeal several times lead me to my concluding thoughts. This property has been ground zero, initiating the village's short-term rental discussions and resulting regulations. I feel the village has acted prudently, providing structure and regulation and a generous grace period. The village asked for public comment and input, and we personally have provided suggestions and feedback during this period, and I appreciate that opportunity. I also strongly feel the confusion and unnecessary turmoil surrounding this application lands at the feet of the applicants. The picture that is painted in the explanations of the appeal is one of an overwhelming complexity. I can't imagine balancing the requirements of 2 professional careers with those required hours of service and a growing family of 3 spread over 2 continents. Clearly, they are busy. Evidently, they are too busy to license and operate a short-term rental. It is completely unfair to allow their reality to overflow and adversely affect the neighbor's peace and privacy. It is time we move past ground zero. I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. The floor is now closed for comments. Trustee Benavides has recused himself. Do the other trustees want to comment or discuss this matter any further before I call for the question?
Mayor, I think I do need to speak up here, and I probably need Attorney Winter's advice. I believe I was sitting on planning and zoning way at the front of this. So I'm not, do I need to recuse myself since I was a part of planning and zoning at that point?
Mayor, trustee, no. There was an application made several years ago.
Right.
It was appealed to BOT, then appealed to State District Court. That's the process that you were involved in back in the day. This is a different application, different issue.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, same request.
Right.
Different application.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Any other discussion from the other 2 trustees?
Yeah, I feel like I need to comment on this. It is my understanding that the application that came before the P&Z in December was not complete. Is that correct?
Mayor, trustee, yes, the actual notice of decision clearly indicates that the only reason for denial was because the application was incomplete.
So I empathize very much with the neighbors who have spoken here tonight. I have been involved with this decision and this issue going all the way back. My concern is that if we do not reprimand it back.
Remand,
excuse me. That's a word my mom used to use with me all the time. I don't feel like it's going to get it put to bed, because I think it's going to open a door for them to come forward and say, this application wasn't complete, it should have never been on the docket, and so it's not going to, whatever we decide is not going to put it to bed. I think it just opens the door to more legal activity. And if I'm understanding that correctly, then I think the proper thing to do, in my opinion, is to remand it back so that it can go through the correct process, in that P&Z will review it. I'm assuming however it comes out, it could very well become appealed to us, that it's all standing on the application itself and not that it was an incomplete application that should have not been on the docket at that time. Am I understanding that correctly?
Mayor, trustee, you have articulated my exact concern, is that if we do not remand it, now that everyone is in agreement that the application is complete, more legal activity will ensue. All the comments we heard this evening are still ripe. They are still available to each of the neighbors. They will get to make these comments, and they will present them to P&Z. But P&Z will have before it a complete application, and then can properly consider the complete application, consider the public comments that we heard this evening, and again, I assume in June at the P&Z, and make their decision based on a completed application and public comment. But right now, we have a denial based on an incomplete application.
So, again, I'm very empathetic to the neighbors and their comments. I think what I heard in a lot of the comments is this has been very confusing, and I think that just opens the door. And so I guess my feeling would be to remand it so that it can be a completed application, that there isn't any other excuses. If it gets voted down or doesn't, or if it comes to us on appeal, it's not confusing issue because it's the issue of an incomplete application versus a complete application and the process there. So that's the direction I think we need to go. And I guess I feel like that's the way we have to go, and I sort of apologize to the neighbors to put you through it for a longer period.
Thank you, Trustee Lewis. Any other comments from the trustees?
I just have one comment. Oh, sorry. I agree with everything that Trustee Lewis just said. I have a question for Attorney Winter. Is there a limit to the amount of times that a person or a property owner can re-up their request?
Mayor, Trustee Radovic, there didn't used to be, but there is now. And this application caused that correction, and I would turn it over to Director Justice, and she can explain what we just did yesterday, I think.
Right. So Trustee Radovic, Mayor, trustees, so this application was the impetus for some changes to our application forms so that all of this information is up front for any applicant for any application that can either be administratively approved or goes before a public hearing. We basically say no incomplete applications from this point forward. Well, this was back in December, no incomplete applications from this point forward. And that means all supplemental documents. We included a checklist that didn't used to be included in all the applications to explicitly tell everybody what we needed. And part of that leniency in the past was because our application forms didn't say everything that needed to be included. So, you know, somebody would be missing something and, oh yeah, don't forget you need this thing too. So at this point now, all the application forms are very clear about what is required to be considered a complete application. And I'm hoping to make some changes to the application forms this week that include that no changes will be allowed post-submittal. So if somebody misses the deadlines that are available on our website, they will have to apply the next month.
Thank you, Tiffany. I want to apologize to all of you that live nearby as well. I actually have a similar situation in my neighborhood, and we've had to call the police late at night because of parties that are happening at a part-time absentee neighbor rental right across the ditch from where I live. So I do sympathize, and I feel really bad, like Trustee Lewis does, about how this is unfolding. I don't know that I agree that it should be remanded back, but I also don't agree that it should be, no, I won't go there. So anyway, nothing else to say, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
So my understanding is that if we didn't remand this back, we would be deciding on an appeal based on an incomplete application, and it would open the door for them, if they lost, to come back with a complete application. Is that my understanding?
Mayor, trustee, if you do not remand, then we would schedule this for hearing on the appeal at the next available opportunity. And you would be hearing an appeal of a denial based on an incomplete application. So depending on your decision that day, it would likely go to district court again. And I am not completely comfortable with how the district court would view the village ruling on a denial of an incomplete application, given ordinance language that requires the planning and zoning director to only process completed applications. So that's the difficulty.
That was my understanding, and as I said, I apologize that we have to take you through this process, but I think to try to end this once and for all, it needs to be remanded back so that it can be a completed application, win or lose, appeal come to us, then there's not a question out here of an incomplete application versus an application, which I think will just continue to confuse the matter and keep the door open. And so for me personally, I think the correct action is to remand it, and I apologize for that decision.
Any further discussion from the governing body?
Mayor, I have one more
Yes.
question. Attorney Winter, is there any kind of arbitration or any kind of mitigation other than remanding it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, to Planning and Zoning to deal with a remand?
Mayor Trustee Radnovich, not that I'm aware of. Tiffany has cleared this for, assuming that you vote in the affirmative to remand, she has cleared this for hearing in the June meeting of the P&Z. So that's pretty darn quick. If we go the route where we're pursuing district court litigation, this will be pending for a year or more based on our previous experience.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the governing body? Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. A vote yes means to remand, a vote no means to not. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Item 11 is new business. 11A, discussion and approval to advertise ordinance number 286, repealing Chapter 4, Article 5, alarm devices and systems from the Village of Los Ranchos Codified Ordinances. Public Safety Liaison, Fred Radosevich.
Thank you, Mayor and Board of Trustees. What we're asking you to do is authorize the village to go ahead and advertise to repeal this ordinance. Let me give you a little background on the ordinance. Back in the 1990s, thousands of communities throughout the country passed these types of ordinances because a lot of people were putting in alarm systems. It was taking a lot of time from law enforcement and fire to responding to false alarms. So they passed all these ordinances and started requiring homeowners, business owners to register their alarms with the municipality, the police department, or whatever. The village passed this ordinance, and to my knowledge, they have never set up the mechanism to register alarms. Plus, we don't have the ability to track them because it goes through Bernalillo County. So every so often, the village will get somebody to come in and say, I'm here to pay my registration fee for my alarm ordinance. And Tiffany looks at everybody and we go, we don't have a mechanism in place. So we discussed it at length, and we feel the best thing to do is just to repeal the ordinance. It's never been utilized in 30-some years. Actually, the alarms have come a long ways since they first came out in the 1990s. False alarms are very minimal at this point now. So there's really no reason for the village to have this on the books anymore. So that's what we're asking to advertise, just to repeal the entire ordinance.
Thank you, Fred.
I'll stand for any
So,
questions.
Before we get to questions, I need a motion.
I would make a motion to repeal ordinance number 286, is that correct?
Yes,
I'll second.
thank you. Now, is there any discussion from the governing body? Is there anyone from the public?
Mayor.
Go ahead.
We need to make the correction on the motion is to advertise. So Trustee Lewis, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I will amend my motion to advertise ordinance number 286.
Thank you. Senator, Trustee Pacheco, I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you very much. Now, is there any discussion from the governing body? Being none, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. There's no one. I'm going to call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Item B,
Thank you.
discussion and approval to advertise ordinance number 287, an ordinance amending the 2013 codified ordinances of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Chapter 3, Business Regulation, Article 3, Franchise Agreements, Section 3, to incorporate a new franchise agreement with New Mexico Gas Company, Inc., repealing ordinance number 141, P&M Gas Services of New Mexico Municipal Franchise Ordinance, enacted July 10th, 1996. Attorney Nan Winter and Administrator Ann Simon. Nan, go ahead first.
Mayor, trustees, the village has been working on the renewal of 4 or 5 different right-of-way agreements with the basic public utilities locating their facilities in the village right-of-way. This is the first one you'll see. This is New Mexico Gas. It had expired, and we recently renegotiated this right-of-way agreement. It's called a franchise, but it's generally speaking a rental agreement or an easement. It looks and provides very similar provisions with respect to the agreement that just expired. We did update 2 provisions in this agreement, however. The big issue that I think, got in this agreement is gas company's recognition of 4th Street as a moratorium street. If you recall, we developed a new ordinance that called 4th Street a moratorium street and pretty much forbid any public utility from tearing it up in the next 5 years. So that ordinance is now expressly recognized in this new draft ordinance. The other thing we did in this agreement was we upped the compensation. So your rent used to be 2% of gross receipts received by gas company from services they provided in the village. We moved that up to 3%. So a good chunk of change. Related to that, the price of gas has gone up. Natural gas is up. So you will probably see more than just the expected 2 to 3% bump, given what we think, in my other work at the firm, we track energy pricing. So I expect that you'll see revenues, increased revenues associated with the energy pricing issues coming in this summer and fall. So we're just asking to advertise. This is a different creature. It's an ordinance for a franchise, which means it has to be published twice, but we are asking to advertise the first time. We also expect that this will be a template for the Public Service Company of New Mexico franchise, which we are negotiating, and we're hoping this will move P&M along. I stand for questions.
Attorney Simon.
Yes, Mayor, trustees. As Attorney Winter said, this is one of many franchise agreements that we're negotiating, and we were very pleased that the gas company was amenable right away to increasing its percentage rate by a percentage point from 2 to 3%. And we do hope that provides a little leverage on P&M, who has been, up to this point, a little hard to get to the table. We have a couple other franchise agreements, but we were very happy to get this one before you today.
Thank you, Administrator Simon. Before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Of course.
Can we motion to advertise this ordinance twice, or do we have to do it just once now and then we'll do it again?
Mayor, trustee, I think your policy is to do a motion first to advertise. And then, most jurisdictions don't do that, but that's your policy. So we're putting it up front that way this time. State law requires that it be published twice. I do not think that I have to come back with another agenda item saying, hey, publish again.
Okay.
It's just state law that you publish these particular types of ordinances twice. So respecting your process, which is request to publish, we'll do that, then we'll publish twice.
Okay.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to advertise ordinance number 287.
Need a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Now, is there any discussion from the governing body?
Yes, if I can go up first. Raising the amount of revenue from 2% to 3% that comes to the village is a significant increase. Is that consistent with other municipalities? How does it compare? I don't know who wants to take that, whether it's Ann or...
Mayor, trustees, I've been working on franchise agreements for 25 years. I did most of the franchise agreements for the city of Albuquerque, probably a dozen other municipalities and counties in the state. Bernalillo County just signed 2 3% franchise agreements with P&M and Gas Company a couple years ago. That's something that came through my office. The Albuquerque-Bernalillo County water utilities at 4%, which is probably the highest, but Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority is a different creature. CenturyLink is less than 3%. Most of the old 25-year-old agreements like yours, most of them are at 2%. We have to push pretty hard to get the 3%. But statewide, 3% is pretty good, and they're moving in that direction. Comcast is at 5%, but that's because it's federally regulated. That's a federal 5%. So P&M and Gas Company have been consistently at 2%, and as these things renew at the end of the 25-year marks, we're moving them to 3%. So it took some cajoling, but we got them there at the 3%, a little quicker than I expected to get them there.
Thank you. Any other questions from the governing body? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Item C, discussion and confirmation per Article 1 Municipal Court, Section 11.1.8. B, candidates for the panel. The municipal judge, the mayor, or any member of the Board of Trustees may submit names of individuals who are qualified to serve as temporary judge for consideration of the Board of Trustees. A, Cristina Aguirres, alternate municipal judge, is recommended. So Judge Diane Albert, you're still here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Cristina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and trustees, for giving me the opportunity tonight to express my strong support for the appointment of Christine Arguelles for alternate municipal judge. I've known her for many years, and she is very experienced. She has been introduced to Clerk Maxine Baca as well, and we believe that she would be an outstanding addition to our team. And she has, I'm a lawyer, but I do patent prosecution, so she has a lot of experience to help with the procedure of the municipal judge. So I would ask you to appoint her tonight to alternate municipal judge, because I do travel or get ill or something, and we have to give notice for the trials and the arraignments several weeks ahead of time and so on, so she would be available. She's lived in the village for many years and is very familiar with the village as well, so I think very highly of her. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Diane Albert. I certainly recommend her confirmation as well. So before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the confirmation of Christina Argelis as alternate municipal judge.
I need a second.
I second.
Is there any discussion from the governing body?
I just have one question. I want to make sure we get pronouncing your last name right, so.
Aguirres.
Correct, it's Aguirres.
Aguirres,
okay.
yes.
All right. I was a little hesitant to make the motion because I didn't know how to pronounce your name correctly. Thank you.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go right ahead.
Has the village ever had an alternative judge before?
Yes, absolutely.
Always.
I was appointed, I don't know, last year?
I think it was last
I
year, but we had
elected the
one
judge
before.
in November,
Good.
but I was appointed a couple months before
This is
that
not a new procedure.
on the recommendation of Judge Ma at that
That's
time.
correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was just a question.
Okay. Any other discussion from the governing body? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Christina, you have been confirmed as the ultimate judge. Thank you very much. We are now at item 12, trustee informal discussion. Roundtable discussion is informal. The Board of Trustees will take no official vote or other official action. Trustee Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. My husband and I were at a local restaurant not so long ago, and there was an older gentleman that began to choke. And it was a really scary thing. We were like the only other people at the restaurant. So my husband performed the Heimlich maneuver on him and actually got him to stop choking. Which then, and I'm not saying it to brag about my husband, I'm proud of him for doing that 100%, but the reason I bring it up is right in this room, probably 20 years ago, there were CPR classes held. And I would like us to consider that again, maybe when we open our new community center. I just feel it's important that the community have access to learning those type of skills. And I don't want to say just because we have an older community here, but it's probably a good thing that we all know what to do in a circumstance like that. So I just wanted to bring that up. Mayor, I also wanted to ask about the blessing of the water. I know this year especially is a critical one for water, and I didn't know if we were going to move forward with that or not.
I was told by Our Lady of Guadalupe Church that Father Holiday didn't want to talk until after Easter.
Okay.
He's very, very busy. But next
right.
week, I will be talking to him.
Thank you. I just don't want to see that tradition go away.
No, it's not.
And then lastly, I just want to make a comment on social media. It appears that there was some social media posts this past week that brought about a lot of negativity, and it saddens me, you know, that we're at that point where social media is just providing a lot of negativity, and it can be used for so much positivity, but we for some reason are finding ways to use it for the negative. And I would just like to encourage that if we're going to put something on social media, that we put both sides of the story. You know, if and social media is a great tool. I think we'll all agree to that. But I feel like if social media, if something's going to be communicated via social media, it really needs to communicate both sides and the full story. And if there's only one side posted, and that's what people are hearing, I also want to encourage those that are reading social media posts to take action and really research. I mean, what is really happening? You know, what are both sides of the story before taking action? So I really just felt compelled to mention that. I hope that, you know, that we can move forward from that negativity. I hope that we all understand and know that we deserve a full story when seeing something on social media. And we don't deserve to have misinformation. And I think that's what occurred recently. And I just hope that we don't see that anymore. Life is so much better when we unite people versus divide them. And I think that that's got to be the steps that we take moving forward. And I just felt it necessary to make that comment, you know, for all of us to consider for the future. And I don't want to end it on a negativity. I want to wish everybody a very blessed Easter holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pacheco. Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, let me comment briefly about the Paseo del Norte open space and the Chinese Siberian elm trees and the fallowing and the shortage of water, and also talk about the cottonwoods. This is all very, very complicated for us, and you know, I think we have a responsibility to deal with it. We do need expert opinions on this, and you know, there's a shortage, and we're all gonna feel the squeeze somehow. I think it might be wise to invite somebody that's a professional, maybe from New Mexico State. I know we had a speaker, Catherine Jackson, here at our January meeting that mentioned New Mexico State person, Marissa Thompson, as someone that could talk to us about the mistletoe, which we haven't even talked about much at all, and saving the trees. You know, I'm not a big fan of elm trees, but I got to tell you, public comment matters. You know, when I moved to the village some 38 years ago, I got rid of my 5 huge elm trees, and then I tried to talk my neighbors into doing the same thing, and they said, "Well, that tree took forever to grow, and it's like, you know, it's tall." And I thought, well, you know, they do have a good point, and you know, so we need to come up with a plan and consider the new person that's going to lease the farmland, because you know, elm trees do take water, and they're going to compete for the water that might be used for farming whatever we want to farm. So it is very complicated, and it also competes against the cottonwoods, which are much more important to me. There are some wells on that particular piece of property, so I don't know if we can somehow utilize those wells.
Well, the wells, as I understand it, can be used to water the wildlife area. So I don't know that that's a problem per se. Is it, Administrator Simon? Let's talk about that, because we did discuss that a little bit a few months ago.
Mayor, trustees, I'm not sure if I have all the answers, but it's my understanding that well can be used in the area where it's located, and I don't believe the cottonwood trees, which are further west towards the clear ditch, would be accessible, but we are open to digging tree wells and hand watering.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never thought I would make an argument for saving any elm trees, but, you know, again, public comment matters, and if that's the approach that this governing board decides to take, you know, I guess you could water those trees with well water as well, if you so desire.
May I offer a comment on the elm trees? I've lived on my property for 37 years. I've got a spectacular cottonwood tree, and I have 6 elm trees. And I killed 3 of them. I took them all the way down to their roots 3 years ago. They grew back. But the fundamental thing to remember is I have never watered any of those trees in 37 years. They've never been watered. The roots are down in the water table, which is 14 feet below the ground. And that's how these trees are surviving. But that being said, it's my understanding that Middle Rio Grande Conservancy is going to work with us, and we can actually water the trees if that's something that we all feel we need to do. Okay?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. So, Trustee Lewis.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I do want to mention mistletoe. I do think that's an issue. I think it's a very valid issue for us, and I just want to encourage us not to let that fall through the cracks.
Yes.
I'd be very interested in being involved in trying to come up with some kind of program. As I look around, it seems like most of it's in the village. You know, you can sort of go south on Rio Grande and you get out of the village and there's not much mistletoe, so.
Go to my house.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So, yeah, I just think it's something, I don't want to see us let it go.
Okay.
Secondly, I just want to make a comment. I've heard some people lately talking about reopening the idea of having our own police force. And I've been around this issue for years now. And you know, I sort of went down that same road when I was new. And I just want to point out that it was shown to me back then, and I don't want to, if that's something we want to pursue, let's pursue it, but I don't think it's something we should take the time on, because it was presented to me that when you have a police force of 3 or 4, one guy's down in court in town and one guy's sick, and all of a sudden you don't have a police force. And it was shown to me the benefits of working with Bernalillo County. Oh my gosh, I mean, it's so economically feasible for us, and we have such a good relationship with them that I just wanted to point that out as people sort of keep throwing this issue around and I hear about it here and there. I'm just sort of going, man, I went down that road myself, and I got convinced that we have a real bargain here and a real opportunity to have much better public safety using Bernalillo County.
I concur.
So something I just wanted to throw out there. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and sort of for our new trustees, last year, it was Sandra and I that did it, but we set up a booth at the growers market, and we had a little banner that said, meet your trustee or have coffee with your trustee. And we sort of did it maybe once a month, 8:30 or 9 o'clock, for about 2 hours. And I would like to see it come back bigger and better. And I think one of the things to make that work is for us to get together somehow and start putting together a calendar. Hey, I'll take that weekend, and nobody's going to take that weekend, and I'll take this weekend, or we'll both be there. But I would really, the season's upon us, and I would like us to get out a calendar among us trustees and figure out how to, and it's completely voluntary, but
It's fun, though.
it's fun.
And it is fun.
It is fun. And I think people were, most of the time they would walk completely around us because they thought it was a political stand. And then some of them would venture in and take that chance, and we had great conversations. So I really want to encourage everybody to somehow, I don't know, work through somebody at the village or somebody start coordinating a calendar and see if we can get it put together.
Thank you. Any other
That's all I have.
comments? Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
Trustee Lewis, was there a target and balls at a pool underneath the trustees? I'm not sure. It sounded kind of like it might have been like
guarantee you.
that. I wanted to thank the New Mexico Municipal League and Danielle pushing me to go to the Municipal League. Molly.
MOLI.
That was one part of it there. I think that was a really great thing, and I appreciate the village sending me, and learned a lot. And I would actually even recommend that, because different things get brought up every year, there's a lot of great discussion, that trustees that have been here a while could get a refresher course.
And I
and
need
the
to
mayor.
get one too. Yeah, that's true.
The other thing was about social media. I may have missed something. Was this on Facebook? Since this is discussion, I'm discussing. Is it something too egregious to bring up at the meeting tonight?
Oh, it was brought up tonight.
The following.
Oh, that. Oh,
That was on social media.
Okay, got it. Speaking of which, you do have an expert here. I'm a landscape architect. I worked at Yanamoto's for 5 years before Paseo del Norte got built back in the 70s. And I've been in this business for a long time. So I know a lot about trees. I know a lot about shrubs, and I know a lot about landscaping. So happy to supply any knowledge that I have. I have a question for Tiffany, I guess, and I'm just not remembering very well the overall layout of the village from this perspective. Is there a park north of Paseo del Norte in the village of Los Ranchos? So,
However, and Administrator Simon, you might tell them about the property that's just to the north of El Pueblo Road. What our
I think I
plans
know
are.
about that, Mayor.
Oh, okay. then
Yeah,
you
yeah,
already
the
know.
one that's part of the 4th Street.
Yes. We're gonna make that a park. We can, if we want to.
I would suggest my company does quite a bit of parks and recreation planning. We do master plans for cities and villages and towns. I'm not trying to sell our company.
No, I understand.
But the way that you plan parks is not just to put one
Well, of course.
in a place. The way you plan parks is where there's a need for a level of service. And if it's right on 4th Street, it's not that quiet zone that people were talking about tonight. And so I bring back the idea that the Paseo North open space may not just be an open space. It's acting as a park for those people north of Paseo del Norte. And I can see how some of the people north of Paseo del Norte, there's probably a few in the audience, feel slighted possibly by not having that. And so while it takes water, and I have been a proponent of water conservation. I was on the governor's task force on water conservation when Governor Richardson was governor. And so I'm a water conservationist and a water conservation advocate. But I think there is something more than just fallowing going on here, and it's about that being parkland, not about it being just open space. And I will also say that while Siberian elms, not Chinese elms, Siberian elms aren't the best tree because they do send seedlings out and those masses of seeds that are so hard to clean up and everything, they do provide habitat and shade. So they do offer something. It takes a little more work because of the way they grow, and they don't use much water. Also, the way a tree grows, Mayor, is that they really don't go down 14 feet. Trees grow out, not down, except for ones with tap roots, mostly pines. And so they're not hitting the water. They're just growing from the water that they get.
That's in the soil?
That's in the soil that falls.
Well, if that's true, then doesn't that matter everywhere in the valley?
Sure.
All right, okay, you've answered my question, because I was trying to figure that out myself. But I think part of what you're saying is, and this is very interesting, and I'll ask Administrator Simon, don't we allow everybody to use the open space? There's no lock gates out there or anybody chasing people off. There's no
Thank you.
park ranger. I mean, tell us about that.
Mayor, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Trustee Radnovich, it's still open space.
And
There are
always
still
will be.
trails. There's still access. You can bike and walk. And the only thing that has changed is that we are going to fallow the 2 fields that are currently farmed. And they have been farmed. It's not open space. I don't know how you want to define it, but it's farmed land for 14 years. And this new farmer wants that land to rest. So it's a fallowing of those 2 lots. It's not locking the gates. It's still a park. It's still open space.
I totally get that. I totally understand, and you're correct. But it is a borrowed landscape. It's a landscape that when people walk by is green, feels cool, looks nice to their eyes, and they have shade and trails. So I'm just saying, again, and it's something else I was going to bring up, letting the public know our plan is really important, and that there aren't any parks in Los Ranchos north of Paseo del Norte, and this kind of acts like a park, and parks don't get fallowed. Parks grow grass. Now, granted, these are pastures, but there is something to be said for open space that has some green. So I just wanted to say that. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with those that are fallowing. Fallowing works very well, and it does a good job of regenerating. But we might want to consider how that comes back and ask the farmer for a plan, if you haven't already. And not just a written plan like this, but a physical graphic plan that shows what he's planning to do, that the people of the village could take a look at.
Absolutely. Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, just to respond, you will get a plan. We have not yet finalized negotiation with the new farmer because the old farmer is not yet off the property.
Oh.
But as soon as we sit down, that is part of the requirement of being the farmer, is to come every year and submit an annual plan. So you will get that.
Okay. So a parkland-like open space, I would recommend, since we have no parks in that part of Los Ranchos. I've heard from a few constituents in the past 2 weeks. I've gotten 2 calls, not a few. But there are people in the village that believe that we need to have more transparency. And I'm not saying that we don't have transparency myself, but when people not recognize it, but when people see it that way, it does create a little bit of a questionability. Sure. And so, and one of them was about the open space. Sure. So I just bring that up because I think hearing from the residents is really important. Of course. And really listening to what they have to say is really important. The last thing I wanted to say is we had a great strategic meeting. I think JT was talking about that in the beginning of our meeting tonight. Yes. And I wish more of the public would have come to that because it's open to the public. So the next time we have it, which unfortunately is 2 years from now.
No, we can have one next year.
So I would invite the public to come because it's a real eye-opening kind of experience for everyone and a really good way to understand where elected officials want to go with the village and what we are doing for the public, for our residents, and what we think is important, because you might have some thoughts on that too. So that was my last comment, Mayor.
Okay, meeting is now adjourned. It's 9:36, and I need a second. Second. Okay, everybody have a wonderful Easter.
Oh, you too. See you at the Easter egg hunt, Mayor.
Yes, I hope so. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Some